Howdy, howdy, and welcome to My Bloody Judy with your final forgets, myself, Zachary Patton Garcia.
And Ian Carlos Crawford. And today joining us is our opening kill.
Hey, I'm Grady Hendrix. I write horror novels like My Best Friend's Exorcism, Horror Store. My latest one is the Final Girl Support Group. And I also write movies from time to time.
There you
Show
go,
off.
there you go. Just a little bit of everything. Yeah, my Final Girl
I'm a
Support
really
Group.
good dancer.
you go.
I am a dog trainer, dog whisperer.
We should have had you on here for the dancing. We could have covered a dancing movie.
So we're here to talk about Save the Last Dance.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
no, actually, I was talking to a producer once when I think it was Step Up to the Streets was really big. And they were like, so these dance movies are huge. I want to do a dance horror movie. And I was like, oh, cool. You can do something like The Red Shoe, or like Suspiria. He's like, no, like Step Up, but like people are getting killed, but with dance. I was like, oh, okay. That's a different take.
It's a concept. It sounds A24 up the wazoo,
Yeah, exactly.
But no, today we are going to be covering Halloween H20. Why we threw a couple of them out there for you. Why did you specifically, Grady, pick H20 to come on for?
So Halloween H20 is a movie that gets a lot of flack and not undeserved, but I also feel like there's really, really good stuff in it. And I kind of feel like until the remakes recently, it would have been a really good ending point for the franchise. And there's a lot of good in there. There's also some not so good, but a lot of good. We should remember to celebrate the good.
Yes, 100%. It is one of those movies that you revisit, and I think the ending just sticks out for everybody, right? It is that final conclusion that I would not even, and we'll get to the ending, but like I wouldn't even mind if they stuck this ending at the end of this new trilogy they're working on. I would not be mad at it at all. They could just redo it. It'd be okay. But we've got Laurie Strode is back after Halloween 1 and Halloween 2. We've got Laurie Strode, and then Final Girl Support Group. You got a character based on Laurie Strode. I was really excited to see that one. That was probably my favorite little Easter egg in there.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, no, well, you're talking about Danny, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And I wound up naming her after Danielle Harris because I have a lot of affection for Halloween 4. And I thought, naming her Jamie is just too on the nose. Jamie Lee Curtis is like too well known of a star. But yeah, absolutely. And one thing that I think Halloween H20 gets right is she knows he's her brother by then, right? She knows that in part 2, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I can't imagine how traumatic that is. Cause did they visit him in the institution? Like, what was there? I always am just like, what? How horrible is that? Your brother's like mentally ill. He's in an institution, and then he gets out and just wants to kill your entire family and specifically you. Like, it's just awful. I don't get along with some of my siblings sometimes, but not like this.
It gets to that point sometimes. I don't know.
Exactly.
I got to say, rewatching it now, this was like rewatching it for this recording was the first time I'd seen it in, God, I don't know how long, but I saw this in the theaters, and it's funny. We had so many, like Scream had come out at this point. Like we had a lot of movies like that. And I feel like when Zach and I recorded our episode on the first Halloween, you had said, Zach, it was kind of Halloween H20 felt very Scream to you. And I definitely felt that revisiting it now. I was like, oh, I could definitely see, like they use the like Halloween music very sparsely throughout.
Very sparsely, yeah.
And a lot of the like chase scenes kind of just sound like the music. It feels like Scream, right? I mean, they're even in the house from Scream 3 at one point in that hallway. But I did notice a lot of that. Like I thought it was weird that like not until the end do they really use that music. And for me, that music is like so much a part of the Halloween series that was like something I noticed. That was like my biggest, like, oh, I could see why this maybe doesn't feel as Halloween-ish to someone like you, Zach, who's like a super fan.
I think that is my biggest complaint about the film is that I really do like it, but it doesn't necessarily feel like a Halloween film. It doesn't feel like it's taking place on Halloween aside from like that opening scene with Marian Chambers.
Yeah.
The rest of it feels very like California summer, teens in jeopardy. Like And I think that's what always kind of didn't put me off, but always that's my biggest critique. Otherwise, like I'd rank it up there with some of my favorite Halloween films. And the score, just like you were saying, they had a lot of issues with the score that we'll kind of get into also. But the score was they did like a hodgepodge of like the guy they hired to do the score. They took some of his stuff. They took some of like what they were using with the Faculty and Mimic and like all of the big like movies at the time is what they were just created this I don't know, Miramax Dimension film score out of all of that.
Who is the composer? It's not Marco Beltrami, is it?
It was the composer? John Ottman, I believe.
Oh, okay.
Yes, I think he did the original one. He did the score, and it sounds. I was watching like the making of it a while ago, and they described it perfectly. It like sounded too busy, and they showed like examples of like his score in the film before they kind of took that out and started putting in the generic horror fare. Yeah, it was just too busy. Yeah. So like this one worked better, but it was missing those big moments of drama that the original Halloween score brings, and that that's the reason it's in every other movie anyway.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things, it's funny, Halloween 4, which is a Halloween installment I have a lot of affection for. I love the dynamic of like sort of like from Halloween 1, except it's much more active in 4, of a babysitter protecting the kids she's babysitting to like extreme lengths. Like I really like that she's really going to earn her like $8 an hour. But the thing I love about 4 is they start with that Halloween montage at the very beginning. That's very Midwestern. It's very, jack-o'-lanterns and scarecrows. And I'm like, why doesn't every Halloween movie start this way? Because they really don't do a good job in H2O of centering this on Halloween. Like, even though it's taking place on Halloween, it doesn't feel like Halloween.
Like the only reason it feels, I mean, like you said, Zach, it's like we do get like the opening of like, it's the 29th and we see kids doing stuff. And then like they say it's Halloween like 4 times, but there aren't any decorations up around the like compound or whatever.
I guess they were just doing, right? It's just throwing little kids in Halloween costumes for a scene. And then we say, that's that, right? We're on Halloween. You should know that now. I mean, it's called Halloween. So that's all we got. But yeah, so we get this opening scene. Takes place in Langdon, Illinois. So we're back in Illinois, which is super exciting. I never went to the theater to see this. I was a little kid, so I didn't go see this at the theater, but I couldn't imagine like seeing this looking Halloween-y, seeing you're in Illinois, and then like what you kind of would expect for the rest of the film. Because we open up, we see Marian Chambers, who we haven't seen since the second one. She's like one of the only survivors, the smoking nurse, right? And all of it just, it's a perfect fall feel. We got Mr. Sandman playing. We've got, people carving pumpkins, and she comes home from work or wherever she was, and she comes home and her house has been broken into. And so immediately something's wrong, right? I don't know. It was
I give the movie a lot of credit because this is kind of like, again, I feel like this is kind of like a Scream-esque and opening, right? Because it's like, while it's not like this actor is super famous within the Halloween franchise, she's big character. And I appreciate that it's like an older lady it's not like a like sexy young teen getting the chase scene. It's like, this older lady. And I did appreciate that she was pretty smart, right? Like she immediately is like, nope, getting out of the house.
Yes.
She was like not sticking around, going to call the police, and like, goes to the kid's house to like get help because she knows Michael's in her house. And she still gets killed, but she's not stupid. She's very smart about like, this is when we run. Like Michael will kill me. I know I need to get out of here. Mm-hmm. And I appreciated that, especially like it being like an older woman, not like a teen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I completely forgot Joseph Gordon-Levitt was in the beginning.
I know, I have that right.
Getting an ice skate in the face. Yeah. Also, the movie takes place 20 years later, which I love because they must say it's 28 years later 19 times in this movie. It's a little bit like 4, where they say it's 10 years later, like a lot, to make sure the audience gets that it's 10 years later. They really say that a lot in this.
Yeah, they do, especially like the behind the scenes like cast interviews. They're all making that point. 20 years later, guys, look at this. We love a nostalgic anniversary, right? I'm surprised this wasn't H40 that came out in 2018. But I mean, they did just call it Halloween. But yeah, so Marian Chambers, she sees somebody's broken in, she runs next door to her neighbor, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, got a young Joseph Gordon-Levitt here. I don't know. He goes to investigate the house and goes through it, and it's like clearly been ransacked. And I always have these questions about like Michael. Like, I mean, there's questions throughout the whole entire franchise, right? It's like, how does he learn to drive? How does he learn to do this? How does he learn where Marian even lives? Like, how does he know which files to go through and how like a filing system even works, right? But he's clearly gone through and found Laurie Strode's file and gone, picked it and is now just stalking around instead of just getting out of there. He's, he does the classic Michael Myers thing, and he's going to kill everybody here.
I thought they did a good job of, I mean, now that we like have recently watched some of these, Zach, the movie does a good job of making Michael Myers the way he was in those first movies, because I kept thinking like, Grady, Zach and I just recently had covered the newer Halloween movie, which I hadn't seen until we covered it. And like in those, Michael is murdering like every person he encounters, right?
Right.
Like everyone, their skull is crushed, everyone, their throat is slit. But in this, which I don't think I would have realized, is more in line with like the original Michael, like that, like from when Zach and I watched the originals, it's like he kind of just like stalks around and like watches you and like opens a door and then disappears. And I thought they did a good job of like capturing that.
I feel like that murder everyone Michael is a bit like Halloween 2 Michael, whereas Halloween 1 Michael, you're right, does seem a lot more like a creepy perv who's just like staring through windows and stuff and occasionally killing.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think that's lost on a lot of people when they think of this franchise, right? Is that the first one had so few deaths that he really didn't.
4, I think. Yeah.
With like and if that were made, I mean, like they did have a remake, but like if that movie specifically were made today, you would have him killing whoever he gets the mask from and the ropes and all that. You would have him killing like people at the sanitarium, right? Like that's what we would get. But like it really brings it more down to earth and more homely that this was just a guy in a mask with a knife who fixated on this girl and then fixated on her friends around her, right?
And they really nerf his power level in this. Yeah. Like there's been Halloween movies where he's like invulnerable. And in this, like people like do seem to stand a fighting chance.
Yeah.
Like Michelle Williams and Josh Hartnett would not have been able to fight back to him in the 2018 Halloween movie. They would have been dead immediately.
No.
I will say though, he's been working out because he's got those moments where he's like lowering himself down from a pipe on the ceiling and like he's got some new tricks here. But yeah. So we've got that, especially in this opening, we've got that Michael that's kind of shrouded in like a little bit of shadow and stuff. And we're not going to get that for the rest of the movie, right? So you better enjoy it here for the most part. The mask changes like a crap ton in this movie. Yeah, they had like 6 or 7 masks in this.
It's blonde at one point. Like in a couple of shots, it looks blonde. And I know, didn't they use CGI to replace the mask some as well?
Yeah,
I had no idea about that. I read because I feel like my go-to is always if I'm watching a movie that I've seen already, I will also be looking at the IMDb trivia on my phone while I'm watching. And because I was like, this mask looks weird, and I looked and I'm like, oh, they used a bunch of different masks, and then like you said, they like CGI to try to make it look like the other one they used, but it didn't work.
So initially, what they did is they brought in the masks from the previous films, right? And they were like, well, we're going to try out a couple of these and see which one of these work. And then they were like, well, let's make one out of a combination of these. And then the director, he wanted one that was even more blank than even Halloween 1 was. And so it's just a mess. They tried to like blend it all together as much as they could, but he's got a bunch of them like in a backpack or something off camera, and he's just swapping them out as the movie goes.
This one will be good for this scene.
Yeah.
Well, one quick, can I jump in for a second about?
Oh yeah, go for it. Yeah,
because this is a Dimension film, and the thing with Dimension that I think is weird is they had this weird mask fixation. Like I know on Scream, which was just a few years before this, because this is what 98.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So Scream a few years before, they had a huge argument with Wes Craven about the mask he wanted to use. And they were like, that's just not scary. And then they lucked into, Wes Craven was right. And we have this iconic ghost face mask. So at the time this came out, they'd had Scream 1 and 2 do really, really well. And like Ghostface was like already iconic. So I'm sure there was a lot of stress and pressure on Steve Miner, like, get a mask that works, get the best mask.
Yes, 100%. And Steve Miner came from Friday the 13th, didn't he? Right.
Yeah.
He was from Friday the 13th. So
Initially,
initially,
I think.
Yeah, it was John Carpenter was like approached to do it, and there's something about money. John Carpenter didn't care about this franchise unless it's money now, which is the way to be, right? You create a successful franchise and you live off of it. I no hate there. But like,
I did hear that he really wanted like millions and millions as a director's fee, like an absurd number. And his point was, I didn't make a percentage on these previous 6
which
movies.
Is fair, which is very fair.
I think it's fair. Like, pay up. You know?
Mustafa Akkad really did bank in on this franchise. He really did.
It's the only thing he ever did, isn't it?
I think this was his bread and butter. I think that's why he was like trying to get it to go for so long. Because God, he was even talking about 22 of them, like just on that one timeline, that initial timeline. I couldn't even imagine, man.
Man, the Friday franchise can't even get to 13. Like 22 is ambitious.
I don't know. For the Friday one though, for a long time they were doing them one a year. They were going for it. It stalled out somewhere, but we got Marian Chambers. She like goes back to Jimmy's at some point. So like we said, he's got a skate in the face. The other kid's dead. She's being hunted down by Michael Myers. And I really like that. Like, even for an older woman, they really let her put up a fight. Like she was like hitting them and kicking him, and help was just right there, right within reach. She almost had it, and then they slice her throat.
Which again felt very Casey Becker in Scream, because it's like she's literally looking out the window, like the police are right there, and she's like in the foreground yelling. And it was like all I kept thinking of was Casey Becker when it's like her parents' car is right there, and like she could see them, but like nope, she gets killed anyway. And I thought, like, even though I've seen this movie before and I just hadn't watched it in a while, like, I thought it was like a good thrilling chase, because it's like a character you don't want to die because she survived the originals, but it also didn't feel cheap the way Halloween Resurrection does with like Laurie just like jumping. It felt like, oh, this is like, it didn't feel cheap to the character either, right?
Yeah. And there's also a reason he was there, right? It's not like he just like somehow popped up at a character from the past's house. Like he was there to find something and decided to just stick around for a little bit longer. And then we've got like, little setup fair, cops in the house talking about Michael Myers hadn't been seen since the second one. So, they're definitely showing us that this is a retcon. Ian, I know how you feel about a retcon. Grady, what do you feel about a retcon?
Yes, I want to know what Grady feels about.
I'm okay with it. Like, I actually think it's harder, and I admire people who make it work. You know what I mean? But like they fit it in and they managed to make everything work. And I don't think it's that hard. But I get why people do it. And it really doesn't bug me that much. I mean, I do think for me, the big weird retcon they did here, though, was, they're stuck with this Jamie Lee Curtis problem where she dies before 4, right? And Jamie Lloyd, I think her daughter played by Danielle Harris, Jamie, her mom's supposed to be dead. And in this, I don't think they mention Jamie Lloyd, do they?
Nope.
But the original script for this had a student giving a presentation where they mentioned that, Laurie Strode's daughter died, and they have her like throwing up or something over it and crying out her mouth, I guess. And and I get why they didn't go there, because that's pretty dark, and I'm not sure it works. Like, wait, she didn't know her daughter was dead until a student read a report? Like, that makes no sense. I wish they'd made it work as a timeline, but I get why they didn't.
Go ahead, Zach. Yeah.
Go. Okay. I was okay with them leaving it out, because it also meant that, like, why did you just leave your daughter? Go off and have another son. It's not like you were protecting your daughter, because you also had another kid. So they would have been pretty close in age here. So I'm glad they just left it out. They decided to just leave it out. But like, those original iterations of the scripts were like, because Jamie Lee Curtis wasn't even supposed to be in this one. It was a direct to DVD. And it was supposed to be like Charlie was like a copycat killer going around this campus. And then when Jamie Lee Curtis expressed wanting to be in it, then the budget went up. It was a theater movie. Everybody who had stake in it were like all hands in the pot, and like, so it became a sort of like how do we even like mention all of these other like, you know, any mistakes that we may have made, and like because they're coming off 6, like that was a big bomb.
But you know what's interesting though? Oh yeah, I mean 6 was trick or treat, motherfucker. Isn't that from 6?
No, that was right after this one. That's right after.
Oh, right after this one. Yes. That's right. That's right. But also one thing that I'm weirded out by is why isn't Danielle Harris in this? Mm-hmm. I mean, she would have been 10 years older. It would have been a perfect age, pretty much. They could have easily or gotten an actress to play. I don't understand why it's Jamie Lee Curtis and a new kid. Why couldn't it be her daughter? Like, I don't know what the issue is with that.
That's where I go with retconning, Grady. That's always my like, well, why couldn't you just do it? That's like always my issue with any kind of retconning. And like, I become so bratty because I feel like, I mean, you said this too, it's not that hard. Like if you just a few mentions of it, you don't have to like make it plot heavy, but like just a few mentions of it. Like, and for me, it's okay. Like hands up, I have not seen all the Halloween movies. I've only seen the first 3 and then all of the new ones, but
that's what we're doing here, Ian. That's what we're going through for.
And I just feel like it's okay if like they don't directly connect, but why do we have to like make sure they're eliminated, like you said, by giving her a son instead of a daughter? Like,
and also think of how much of a more interesting dynamic it would be if it's her and her daughter, like than her and her son. You know, it's I mean, I could see all kinds of really good storytelling coming out of that. So it's a weird decision.
And like, so Ian, when we cover 4 and 5, you're going to fall in love with Jamie Lloyd. Like Jamie Lloyd is She's like great. Second to Laurie Strode. She is like the heroine of this franchise at like 10 and 11 years old. So for them, I feel like they've done Danielle Harris a huge injustice throughout this entire franchise. The fact that like so many people are coming back and they couldn't find a way to bring Danielle Harris coming back in these next 3, right? Like, it's I don't know, spitting.
Is she not in any of the new ones at all?
I don't think so. They haven't said she's going to be. No, maybe we'll see her surprise. But like, yeah. So I don't know. They did it. They did it right because it also like removes just the. They wanted like a straightforward slasher film for this one. They didn't want it too complicated. I think even when Jamie Lee Curtis came on board, she came on board with the idea that it was going to explore more of the trauma than it even did, like more of the alcoholism and the PTSD that she had. And then they kind of scaled, and they have a good bit in here, but they did kind of start scaling it back for the most part. I mean, I always think that's such like me and Ian both agree that that's not like trauma and what happens after the slasher film is like always so interesting to explore.
Oh yeah.
I'm so happy they're starting to do more often. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, and it's funny. I was just rewatching the Scream movies and like those kind of do it in a weird way. But the sequels of the Scream movies are so decline in quality. You know what I mean? Like I actually like 2 a fair amount. 3 is 3 and 4 is, I don't know, 4 feels very fat. Like it feels like a Scream movie that gained a lot of weight. Like it's just kind of like there's good parts in it, and I think they do a good job with Neve Campbell's character in it, but it's just flabby.
Yeah, Scream 4 is my second favorite Scream movie. Like that's my favorite horror franchise. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
He's about to click you out of here, Grady.
No. Listen, I'm a big defender of Scream 2. A lot of people don't like that. And I think until the last 20 minutes when it's just people standing on a stage pointing guns at each other, I lose interest there.
Yeah.
But until then, I think Liev Schreiber, I was so sad to see him go in 3 because I thought his character was so great.
Yeah, yes, I agree with that because I do. And he is like a good actor and he's really good at being like, this creepy guy that isn't the murderer is just like kind of creepy, right?
He's just a dick.
Yeah. And I like the Scream does that. And that's what I like about the Scream franchise. They allow characters just like Gail Weathers is not a nice person. And I love that for her.
Absolutely. And I mean, I got to say rewatching Scream as well, that's pretty close to a perfect movie. Like, even if you don't like it, you have to acknowledge that it is a movie where everything works. And there is nothing wasted in that movie. It's pretty great.
It is.
Yeah.
And I think we're in a really interesting time where bringing back franchises and characters from that franchise is like because there's so many conversations about mental health and about like trauma and all that. This is the time to really do it. So Scream 5 coming out, I have no doubt they're going to do it a lot better than they did with Scream 4, right? Scream 4 was, let's make this movie, get it on Entertainment Weekly, make a bunch of money on it, and like, we've got all our characters back. But it is there's the guy who wrote Freaky, Michael Kennedy, I think he tweeted today that Scream really just hangs on the fact that the characters, the three central characters, do return for each of them, right? And we see them and we continue to see them, and they stuck with it. And so even if the movies aren't entirely great, like the fact that we see all of these people who are involved in every single one have so much confidence in them, it makes it like elevates it to another level.
And we also, funnily enough, and not to get too far off subject, but we live in a world that slashers built. Like before slashers, yes, James Bond was a franchise, but there really weren't, this idea that a low to medium budget movie could be a franchise really didn't exist. There was stuff like, there were series like the Abbott and Costello movies, the Hope and Cross movies, but the same characters coming back in a relatively similar situation. I mean, right around the time you had the slashers start to do that in the late 70s, early 80s, that was when the Rocky franchise started to take off, and the Rambo franchise. And we now live in an entirely franchise-driven movie world. Like it is 100%, or I would say 80% franchise driven. And, serial TV, like all these things that we're supposed to follow, like slashers were the seed of a lot of that.
Yes.
I hadn't thought about that, but
yes, I can completely see it. So then kind of
sorry.
No. I think we were opening a really good conversation there. But like, so I want to bring it back to something you said, Grady, about a moment that shined in Halloween 4 was the opening titles, right? And it felt very Halloween, and it felt very Midwestern. What about the opening titles in this one? It's far off. It's explaining where we're kind of catching up to. But it's not Halloween 4. So what do you think?
No, it reminds me of a lot of like, it's a very Dimension to me opening, where they're using it to sort of like, okay, let's bring everyone up to speed. We've got to deliver information basically, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with it, but I like the atmosphere.
Yeah.
I mean, I think of the credits from the first Halloween and from the 2018 Halloween, and like, even though it's just the fucking pumpkin, it's so good. Like,
and that original, I mean, that pumpkin, because that's just the slow dolly in on that pumpkin. That's so great. I mean, just to have the patience to do that is phenomenal as filmmakers.
I think it's so weird because telling someone who hasn't seen those credits, I feel like I could see someone being like, that sounds fucking stupid, but like,
so good.
It works.
It was so good. They did a really great job with it. So we get the opening titles. We even get like a Donald Pleasance like voiceover actor who like imitates that voice. I thought he did really well compared to the 2018 one where they have him on like a record player or a tape recorder. I thought it was miles better. And then we have Laurie Strode's dream, right? We're setting up the school here where we get a POV shot, or I guess this is Michael's POV shot. He's going through, he's seeing like a picture of Laurie, writing Laurie Strode's name. We get that flash of like Laurie Strode in the closet, and then we wake up and it's I guess Carrie Tate. We're gonna call her Laurie Strode for the rest of this. We've got Laurie Strode. She's waking up, and so all right off the bat, we know that she's got some PTSD over this. She's having dreams. We set it pretty quickly that she's a drinker and like, has got all these problems that she's also putting onto her son. And so I don't know. I like that setup. I like that I would have liked also some mention of like maybe Linda and Annie. I feel like we're still missing that. She needs to like go to a gravestone or something like that. But like we're getting trauma here where I don't know. I mean, especially in Friday the 13th movies where this director's coming from, everybody forgets about it next day.
Oh yeah. Well, that's definitely, I mean, Friday's my franchise. Like,
is it really?
Like, there's something like the Halloween movies are so grim. Like, they're really the like no joking franchise. Like, and Nightmare is like the all jokes franchise. And I feel like for me, Friday sits in a nice spot in the middle. But you're 100% right. When a Friday movie is over, unless you're Tommy Jarvis, you don't remember a thing.
I know. Yeah, they couldn't even get the actor back for Tommy Jarvis.
And I do have to say, I appreciate that they indicate that Josh Hartnett is definitely Jamie Lee Curtis's son, because they've got the exact same haircut in this movie.
Yes, they do. I have it in my notes. We introduced Laurie and Josh Hartnett and Josh Hartnett's hair. I guess on set they just kept putting it down, and then whenever the hairdressers would walk away, he'd just mess it all up just because he's Josh Hartnett. He's that actor. He's smoking in the corner.
He was a goddamn teen heartthrob. Closeted me seeing this in theaters was like, oh boy.
And he's good in this.
Looking.
Like,
he's
very good at it.
In watching this, you're like, I get why people thought he was going to be the next big thing. Like, he has that kind of like bad boy thing going on. He's good. He's got it.
He's got like the nice bad boy thing where it's like,
yeah.
he's like the cool one that like wouldn't bully you, but still like was cool, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And this is what my outfit, I'm doing my Josh Hartnett drag, school drag.
There you go. Perfect.
But yeah, I can remember like seeing this in theaters, and I will say, so we meet all the characters, right? We kind of check in with a lot of them. Although Michelle Williams, I didn't realize she doesn't really do much in this movie.
He doesn't do a whole lot. She's just there. We've got what?
I don't think she even talks in that first scene that she's in.
Yeah, so it's her son John, his girlfriend Molly, and then their friends Sarah and Charlie. We've got Laurie, Laurie's like boyfriend, fuck buddy, Will, and then we've got LL Cool J at the guard's house. Right, and this is our characters that we're going to be setting up for the rest of the movie, and. Yeah, no, Molly didn't do very much in this. I don't think any of the teens really do very much. And there's a lot of sex talk, but no actual sex, right? So like.
And also, if I remember correctly, I think the first like several kills in this movie are corpse tableaus of someone finding the corpses laid out. Yeah. It's not, you don't actually see the kill. Like, this movie is very, there's a real like, almost stuck in the mud feeling to this beginning, where it's like it's spinning its tires, but it's not, it takes it a while to get clicking for me.
Yeah.
But I do like I said, I do really enjoy the setup, because we even get like background on like on what is his name? John's father, who Laurie would have been with. Like, he's also an addict, right? So she found an addict, and it was two addicts like spiraling together. Whereas like, it was, I don't know if it was, I feel like it was implied that Jamie Lloyd's father was probably Jimmy from Halloween 2, right? Or something like that.
I think it was implied. They never say it. Yeah. But yeah, I think it's pretty heavily implied.
So I'm glad we just like kind of nixed the father here. We don't really need him, I guess. He sends a birthday card, but we're setting up it's Halloween, and like John is carrying the burden of the trauma that happened to his mother, and he wants to go on a class trip to Yosemite, and she won't let him do that, right? She's going to keep him on this isolated campus with her while everybody else gets to go. And so
seems safe.
Yeah. Right. So in true slasher movie fashion, the group of teens here decide they're going to throw their own little Halloween party in secret that nobody will know about. That'll go splendidly. I do have a question for you, Grady. Whenever you were coming up with like the backgrounds for all of your girls and Final Girl support group, how much of that did you take from like real movies like this and like backgrounds like this, or did you just completely look at your characters and design their own sort of traumas based on, I don't know, like, did you ever take from movies like this?
Oh yeah. I mean, I tried to consider the first movie and sometimes the second movie as gospel. You know what I mean? Like with Danny, Marilyn, who's sort of like Marilyn Burns from Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I'm like 1 and 2. 1 and 2, I'm going to take as gospel. I'm going to ignore the rest. And so with this, I really just tried to take 1 and 2 because, Danny's story is that, her brother comes home on Halloween, kills people. She winds up in the hospital, and he comes and kills a lot more people. And there's something horrifying about Halloween 2, because it really is. The body count's humongous compared to the first movie. The kills are nastier, like the hot water kill and stuff. They're meaner. It's a much meaner movie. And so I always think of that as such the flip side of the first Halloween. Like, it's just like, now he's really pissed off in the second one. But so I tried to take the first movie as gospel.
Very good. Very good. So we do have the woman and her daughter showing it. We check back in with Michael. It's the woman and her daughter at the rest stop, right? This one was also recycled for Halloween too. Nice little throwback in that one. This one I always find like a true crimey thing. If it feels true crimey, it's always more like infinitely scarier to me. So like a woman and her daughter just like in this isolated rest stop, and then Michael Myers like stalking about in there, and he could have done like anything to them. And he just decides to let them go, but it's still that's a return. So creepy.
It is. And it's a return to that Michael Myers from part one y'all were talking about, which is if it was the 2018 Halloween, he would have killed them both, you know?
Yeah. He would have smushed
nothing
those
wrong
skulls.
with the 2018.
Yeah.
I mean, I like 2018 Halloween a lot, but like it's a much more violent Michael in that movie.
And it is like it's a much more violent Michael. And this one, he is more that one track mind, like you said. Like he's only trying to get to California. He's trying to do a road trip here, so he needs a car.
Yeah.
I don't know what type of car she drove up at. I don't know why they made that decision. I was trying to look up if it connected to another movie or if what that was.
Weird truck.
It's like an old timey truck that this like
the Jeepers Creepers vanish type of thing. Like, it was weird.
But I remember that scene. Like, I mean, this came out in 98, so I was 16, 15. And I can remember that scene. Like, I remember being stressed about that scene, like seeing it in the theater at the time. Like, it was just, I mean, again, I don't think the 2018 version of Michael Myers is a bad version. It's just, that's more of a brutal murderer. And this is still scary because it's like, he could kill you. Yeah, but he just wants the keys. Like, he's gonna look back and think about it and then just keep going.
Literally just kept going.
Yeah. And he really is on mission in this one. He only wants to kill Jamie Lee Curtis and Josh Hartnett. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
He's good with everything else. He's like,
do you notice as he walked across we didn't see him walk across the lawn, but when she comes out of the bathroom, we see like her purse is even like strewn about. Like he didn't even just grab the keys and like a dick move. He just don't get it all out.
Screw you. I mean, he's still a monster, you know.
He is. He's a monster.
Hope can I just jump back to something we just sort of jumped over? But is that Janet Leigh plays the school secretary.
Yes.
So you got a mother-daughter thing, which is another reason I thought it would have been great if Jamie Lee Curtis had Jamie Lloyd in this. But also, in my head canon for the Halloween franchise, Janet Leigh is still Lila Crane, you know, who she played, you know, the sister in Psycho. Because at one point she said something to Laurie Strode, like, you know, we've all had bad things happen in our past. And I'm like, oh my God, it's freaking, you know, like Marian Crane's sister. Oh.
Yeah, and she even walks off, and we hear the Psycho music as she's walking to her Psycho car, and like very there, we see you.
Yeah. I thought of you, Grady. I put that in my notes. I was like, I bet Grady will have something to say about this when like she's giving her advice, because that does feel like a final girl giving another final girl advice, even if she's just playing like a random secretary. Like we all know who she is, so
and I was bummed they didn't do a little more with that part, like just one more scene, like put a button on it, just give us a little bit more there.
Because I remember it being I remember in Entertainment Weekly them doing like a thing on like Janet Leigh coming back to heart, like and like that was a big deal because I think she hadn't done anything in a long time, and I remember anticipating her getting like a really cool something to happen, and I was kind of surprised they didn't like. Not that I would have wanted this like, you know, elderly woman to get murdered, but I thought like she could have had like a cool scene or something, you know.
I'm perfectly happy with how they kind of made this character here as kind of a character that was meant for fan service. It meant for like the cameo of Psycho, but like Laurie Strode also has a mother. Like we saw her adopted mother. She had a mother. They could have made her like a legitimate mother there visiting or something like, I don't know, something like that. Maybe gone on this journey with her daughter or something like that. But I do appreciate the mother-daughter moment that we got here, because it is Jamie Lee Curtis and her real life mother. Like what a special moment that she has on film now. I always say though, whenever I watch this, the Janet Leigh character is always like a little bit creepy to me. So I always imagine like maybe, because this is right after all the teenagers leave to Yosemite, like all the buses go and everything. I always picture Janet Leigh getting in that car and driving up to Yosemite, and it's a whole nother slasher film where she's killing all the kids at Yosemite.
Yeah, because she is a little overly intense in this.
Yes. But yeah, so I mean, we're getting all the setup of like, all the kids here, Laurie Strode in education, which is perfect, I think. If Laurie Strode would have had a job, it would have been in education. But she's this headmistress.
So going back to that, what you just said, but kind of expanding on it, so because like as a teen, Scream was like always my shit. Like I love both those movies. This came out after, I think the second one came out.
After the second one.
So my brain at the time, like teen Ian, Scream was my horror. Like that was the only stuff I like loved. And I remember my brain going there. So I was thinking like, oh, everyone's a suspect, thinking someone was working with Michael. That's what I thought the twist was going to be at the end. And I remember thinking it was either going to be the secretary or the boyfriend, because she kept seeing Michael Myers when it would be her boyfriend. And I thought that was like, because she senses some evil in him, or some like maybe he's, he worked at whatever institution Michael was at and like whatever. So I can remember thinking, because while I love Scream, and we talked about this already, Grady, but like Scream does do the thing where it's like, ooh, is this person a suspect? Ooh, this person's being weird here. And I felt like that's what her character was kind of doing, almost to like, but it could have just been like the cameo in the presence of this actor. But I remember like searching for like which one of them is working with Michael that got him like all the info to like go to the nurse's place and blah, 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 blah. So those were like my two suspects, even though there were no suspects. It was just Michael Myers.
But that brings up the point that like this movie is remarkably straightforward, remarkably straightforward. And in fact, like pretty soon, because Zach, you're just saying all the kids get in the bus to go off to Yosemite. And literally within 5 minutes of screen time, Michael shows up. And that moment. So I just want to jump in here because we've seen a few times where Laurie Strode thinks she sees Michael and she'll like close her eyes or she'll look away and look back, and it's, her boyfriend, usually that stupid guidance counselor. And in this, all of a sudden Michael Myers is walking across. It's like minute 40, I think, because it's only an 80-minute movie. It's like minute 40. Michael's walking across the parking lot towards her, and she closes her eyes to make him go away. And it's such a great, she can't believe it's him. And it's such a great moment because it comes too early in the movie. Like for me as a viewer, I was like, whoa, I did not think this was going to happen so soon. So it took me off guard as a viewer. It takes her off guard as a character. To me, it's like almost the high point of this movie because it's so well done. And then literally they have one of the movie's big low points right afterwards, which is all of a sudden it's the high school guidance counselor on a jump scare. Because this movie has a lot of jump scares in it.
They do it. They really go for it.
And so this movie, right within the space of like 50 seconds, goes from, to me, what's sort of the emotional highlight, where he pops up with Jamie Lee Curtis, to like, oh God, another jump scare.
Because they are really playing with her and her seeing him a lot in this. Like I wonder what those other people on the campus are even thinking. The random times Laurie Strode just stops and closes her eyes for like 20 seconds. This must have happened a lot. Like people do chat about this. Going back a little bit though, I want to kind of touch on John like convincing LL Cool J in this movie. I do very much enjoy him in this movie, but it was totally to capture like the African American audience, right? Just the same as like the next one did with Busta Rhymes. But like he works really well in this movie, and so John goes to LL Cool J's character Ronnie, gets him to let him off campus. They go out, they steal the alcohol, and Laurie Strode is also off campus having lunch. She's downing glasses.
Boozing it up.
She is. Do you remember that Jamie Lee Curtis meme? This is this scene like in real life, where she just it's so perfect. Yes, but I think it's great because it's just more of that. Like she's explaining, I've done self-help group therapy, and I've done all of this, and like she's kind of trying to open up to him, and her freaking boyfriend never like picks up on any of this. Like
ever.
Just like it's okay, babe. You're good. You're fine. And then she, they kind of end their lunch, and she runs into her son on the street and really gives him a freaking lashing for being off campus, right? Like this is the moment where I think she realizes kind of that she has been so overbearing to the point where all of her trauma has spilled over onto him. Like, because it's amazing that he knows who she is. He knows what happened in her past, even though, and nobody else does. And that the fact that he held on to that burden and kept that secret, because I don't know, as a kid, I probably would have told everybody my mom survived.
The fact that he kept the secret is crazy huge. Yeah.
Yes. Like he doesn't, there's not even a moment where he's like talking to Molly and he's like, you know, my mom had all this stuff happen. Like
I would have been that shitty kid. I would have told everyone.
Me too.
No, he kept that secret. And so it really was a burden onto him. And this was the sort of the moment where she realized that, and then she lets him go to Yosemite, but he's not going to do it because he's a teenager, so he's not going to do that. No, he's got a party.
Before I rewatched this movie, if you guys had asked me, oh, like when does he figure out, I would have said, oh no, Josh Hartnett's character doesn't know the entire movie till the end. I like in my brain he knew he wasn't in on it, and I forgot until I rewatched it that he was, which is wild because like kid keeps that secret, and he's only supposed to be 17 still, so he's like still like a teen kid.
And you know, this would have been a great moment for like the beginning of some sort of healing had like this night also not like gone haywire and gone crazy, but like Laurie Strode is right, she knew something was gonna happen.
But I think the movie's trying to make you care about the teens, but I also like you care about Josh Hartnett because I mean he is good in this, and he's good he's good opposite Jamie Lee Curtis. Like they're seeing, like you said, when they're arguing and she's like, what the fuck are you doing? And he's like, you are driving me nuts. Like you're like putting me on a leash because of your trauma. So we care about him because he's good in it, but also because he's like, you know, Laurie Strode's son. And I think I'm glad that while her boyfriend does get killed, I'm glad her son didn't die, because like Laurie doesn't deserve that. Like let her son be okay. I'm glad that he just like goes away and is fine.
So while the movie is like really straightforward, we're hitting those beats, we're hitting the emotional beats, and then we like are getting to this point. Because when Laurie's finally at home and she gets the big glass of vodka and she finishes it off and gets the mouthwash and like covers her tracks, and then her boyfriend shows up and they have a date night. And then while the teens are having their date night, you know, that's where the movie really starts for me.
Yeah. Which is wild, because that's like at minute 50 of the movie.
They really do like hit it. Laurie is finally like revealing everything to this boyfriend who really still won't pick it up.
Oh my god, when he's like, what does he say? Like, oh, that sucks. And it's like,
he says take off your clothes.
And like he doesn't even apologize. He came over with like a pumpkin, and then he hears she's got this Halloween trauma. He's like, he's not even like sorry about the pumpkin. Although I do love that at the end of her story, she's like, now do you want to drink? And she brings back the whole bottle of vodka.
Yeah. She was just waiting for it. Maybe she wanted to drink all night, and she's like, I need to tell him so that he will let me finish this bottle of vodka.
And weirdly enough, like this is Jamie Lee Curtis, you know, has struggled with addiction to painkillers. And she's very, very specific that her addiction started in 1998, the same year as Halloween H20.
Yeah, it was. I was thinking about her addiction a lot in this movie, because I was thinking like how much of like, because you got to imagine like Laurie Strode is the character of her lifetime, right? So she's got to have like stuck a lot of herself into that character, and pulled a lot from that character. So I don't know. It's a weird like life and film parallel there.
So then we hit the hour mark, and our first main character is murdered, which isn't even really a main character, but he's, and again,
he was supposed to be the one who was the killer. When you watch this, you can see where he would kind of dip out, because he scares his girlfriend, right? Charlie, he scares his girlfriend. And you can see kind of where he would dip out and then come back as the killer and like start killing everybody. Yeah. But I don't know. So like garbage disposals, those like scares never do anything for me. But for a lot of people, I guess like sticking your hand in the garbage disposal is a big no-no.
I'm one. I'm one.
Yeah.
I think Stephen King kills a dude in Firestarter with a garbage disposal. It's like one of the guys who the father plays with his head, and he gets this like obsession with vulvic openings, one of which is his garbage disposal, and then he like puts his arm in and turns it on. But yeah, I'm with you. Those scares not my thing.
Yeah, but so he didn't die with the garbage disposal, but he did like he got slashed with the what? It was the cork opener, right?
Yeah.
Right before his
Sure.
girlfriend comes in, finds his body, has her run in with Michael Myers. And this one was like a highlight kill of the movie, right? Her getting in the dumbwaiter, going down, him cutting it, it hits her leg. Like that's some brutal shit. And then he comes up behind her, and
she has to ride it with her dead boyfriend.
Yes. And this is very 2018 Halloween, where he's just like whamming her in the back with that knife, right? Like that's brutal Michael Myers shit. But
also the Halloween movies like those gags. There's the laundry chute in 4. There's is it 5 or 4 that also has, or another one that also has someone climbing up a pipe inside like a duct in the house, and Michael's like stabbing the duct.
Is there a duct? I know in 5 there's a laundry chute, in 4 there's a roof scene. I do know what you're talking about. I think we're talking about the remake though. Is it the? It's like a crawl space in the attic, right? It's not an attic, but it's like and he's like,
But and then in this with the laundry with the dumbwaiter, I mean, it's like Halloween loves these tight little confined spaces.
Yeah, they're great though, and they work. These are the scenes that really work though.
I was gonna say the dumbwaiter really works for me in this.
Oh, me too.
That's what I think of for like this movie is like, oh, the dumbwaiter scenes, like
super effective. And then like Molly and John see her body, they turn on the light, and she's a jack-o'-lantern basically. And then we got this chase scene. We've got the full Michael Myers chase scene. You're ready to go. You know, they set the guns ablazing, and they take off. He like stabs Josh Hartnett, and you know, the cage part was like really good, right? Yeah,
the cage part is great. Yeah, the cage is good
because, and you know what? It just hits these beats that just keep hitting because you get the cage, you get them finding the body, Michael chasing, stabbing, the rock, the cage, and then fucking Laurie and Michael Myers face to face. That shot was on like every freaking promotional anything for this. That was so good. They knew they struck gold right there.
Yeah, no, 100%. And, you know, one of the things that I think slashers do very well that action movies, bigger action movies often get wrong is they're really good at space and geometry of space and where people are and ringing the maximum tension. Because like you're saying, I mean, it is a security door and an inner door. So it's like that outer door and inner door. They get so much mileage out of that one setup. I mean, it's really admirable.
And I like that chase scene. It's like very thrilling, and I mean, you're right, it's like they're working with space because it's like so small that like he could stab them, but it's like he's just missing, it's like just not there. But if it were like give him an inch and he would be probably able to stab them.
Exactly. Absolutely. Yeah, totally.
And then
we get just like these like teens screaming in terror. And I, like you said, I remember cutting that picture out of Entertainment Weekly, Zach.
Did you?
Laurie and Michael like looking at each other through that circle window and like putting it on my door because I thought it was so
it's
cool.
So good that you don't even notice that when it's got the point of view from Michael showing her, you can see off to the side it's the like the like one of the really bad masks that they used, but then when it goes back to like her point of view, it's the good mask, right? But it just, you don't even notice it because it's just such an iconic scene. And we also get like Laurie is full in charge mode here. She is like the babysitter from the first one to an extreme. Like she has got, like, imagine her in the first one with a gun. She I don't know if she would have done anything with it. She's throwing every weapon away in the first one, but she is like ready here. She is ready to go.
That's where
here's the
go ahead, Grady.
No, I was just gonna say, and we get the great line. It to me is like one of the best Jamie Lee Curtis moments in the franchise when the kids are like, what do we do? What do we do? And she's like, try to live. It's so good. It's so good.
You know, in these horror movies, these slasher films, you gotta inject that stuff in there. Even on the poster, it says this summer, terror won't be taking a vacation or something like that. Like they really do, you know, they know what they're doing.
But her delivery on that line is so dead on. It's so good.
Yeah.
The prepared Laurie is a Laurie that I like. And I wish there, I mean, I said this when we recorded our episode, Zach, for the 2018 Halloween. I wish there was a way we could have gotten from this Laurie to that Laurie, because I do think it makes sense that she would get worse after this if like her brother somehow survived. Like it makes sense that she would be more of like in seclusion and gun crazy and everything. Because I liked this Laurie of like, she's like, she looks at her brother, she's like, fuck, let me grab this gun, and then he's gone. But like, there's no like, she's not being stupid. Like he just zips out of there like a ghost, like he does. But she grabs that gun and she goes, like, she knows what she's doing. And I like that version of Laurie who's like, fucking kill him. Like, that's what I need to do.
And there is like a natural progression too between these movies, even though they're not like really connected. Is in H2O, she's like she's fucked up. She's got a lot of problems, but she's very functioning. Like she can do her tasks. In H4O, H4O, she's like she is like at the bottom of the barrel at that point. So it all does sort of track.
Yeah, I'm surprised actually. I wonder why, because in the 2018 Halloween, do they say that the only thing that's canon is one and two?
Just
only one. And so there's only a couple of deaths. And
that's weird,
right?
If maybe the hospital had been in there, I could see her being that reclusive and that like homebodied, but like it would have made more sense in 2018 for her to be more like H2O. A little bit more functional. Maybe had a career or something like that. Yeah.
Well, and I gotta say, you make a good point that like it is sort of, there's 3 Laurie Strode movies, 1, 2, H2O, 2018. I mean, they really do show a progression. This was your problem, Ian. You know, like it doesn't have to retcon all this stuff out. You could have left this in and been okay. So I always wonder if there was something behind the scenes where legally they could. I don't know. I don't know.
I think it was just too complicated. I think they found it too complicated to kind of explain everything. And I heard that one of the biggest things they wanted to do was wipe the body count and then kind of ramp it up again. Because this next one is going to be a body count. Like it's going to be a big one.
So see, like, I think 10 kills in the trailer alone.
I think that's what they want to do. But there's several books I want here. I want between H2 and H2O. I want to find out what happened all there. I want to find out what happened between H2 and 2018's one. Like, we need some sort of like, I don't know. They should hire somebody to write a book. Grady, you want to write a book about?
Yeah, Grady.
It would just be so interesting.
Well, and I also got to say, one thing that's really amazing in this is how prepared Laurie is, except for her one-handed axe carry. I can't approve of that one-handed axe carry. But just how wrong-headed other people are, like her boyfriend, the high school guidance counselor, who I hate with a passion. And it plays so differently with him shooting LL Cool J by accident than it
does,
did
doesn't
in
it? Doesn't it?
I was like,
because he was a very like, first off, Mr. Will, whatever the actor's name is, if you don't have the gun training, she's got the gun. Let her be in charge of the gun. But he's like, no, and pulls it out and shoots like immediately, just like
the wrong
firing
person.
LL Cool J. We think he's dead, but then Will dies like right after that. So there's
like immediately.
Yes, it's pretty quick. And then Laurie takes her kids, right? Tommy Doyle and Lindsay Wallace. This is what they're paralleling here. She takes them.
Oh, you're right.
Sticks them in the car and drives off. And then before, there's like one split moment, because it's a really good chase scene. Like he nearly reaches that car too. Like it's really good. And they're booking it. They're like really running. And they reach the gate, and there's that one moment where she could go, but she knows she is not going to. She's not going to go with them. So she says, drive down to the Beckers, like, which is Casey Becker. You realize that?
Yeah,
that's right.
Oh, yeah. We're screaming Halloween and jacking each other off here.
Well, Kevin Williamson did a lot of work on this script, supposedly.
Yeah, he did. So they, Molly, and we got to remove Molly and John here, because this is the final showdown between Laurie Strode and Michael Myers. This is what we've been here for the whole movie for. She gets the axe, and that iconic moment, that big high shot, her walking down, silhouetted and screaming Michael, like she's become the hunter now. Yeah. Oh, so good. And it's something that, even though in 2018, I love how they charactered her in 2018, she still didn't have that moment.
Yeah.
I don't know though. I do love the like Happy Halloween Michael moment from.
It didn't do it for me.
That does it for me.
For me, I gotta say, Jamie Lee Curtis is worth every cent she got for this movie, plus more. She sells that moment where she chooses to stay, because in other hands, you can see that being dumb. Like, oh my God, you idiot. Why are you, And I got chills, man, when she just, and you're just like, oh God, she's in it. Like, it's like, it's game on.
You're scared for Michael there. Yeah.
And I've thought about this a lot. It's a very brother-sister moment because growing up, probably the only person you're comfortable hurting is your sibling.
Yeah.
Like, like if you have a fight, a physical fight with a friend, it's really upsetting growing up. But your sibling, y'all hit each other, y'all hate each other. You really go all out with your sibling. And like, there's something of that here, and it just works. It's so good.
And it's a movie though. Yeah, go for it.
I think you're right, Grady. It's like, this works so well because Jamie Lee is worth it, right? Like, she's got the acting, and like, it gave me the chills rewatch. Like, I knew that scene was coming, but it still gave me the chills. And she's like, my girl, with the fucking axe. I love it.
Yeah.
And like, that's the moment. I mean, clearly we're all big horror fans here. That's like a moment that I think like good horror does well, when it's like your final girl is like, no, fuck this, I have to fight back, I'm turning around and like going headfirst into it.
That is the final girl. It's like, and this is, okay, we'll go back to your book a little bit, Grady. One of the things I loved about your book is that everybody kept telling her she wasn't a real final girl, right? I don't want to spoil anything. So I don't want to spoil anything. But like that, you know what I'm talking about. And then like she kind of comes into her own there. And like, that's what we love with the final girl. We love a final girl who's going to grab an axe, and go after her brother or something like that. So perfectly done. And she really does. And she only gets one good swing with that axe. I wish she would have had the axe a little bit longer, but like they really go for it here.
Until she gets the other swing with the axe at the end.
People have not seen the movie yet,
right?
No, but like they really battle it out. He hits her with the drawer, she's throwing knives at him, she kicks him in the balls, like, and she's like, and she even that moment where she's just stabbing him. And
I think that table chase scene is good too, where he's like flipping over the tables
right before that was supposed to be in Halloween 4. That was supposed to be little Jamie Lloyd under desks, and he was supposed to be doing that to her, and they never used it. Either they didn't have enough money to do it, or they didn't have enough time, but they've recycled it here, and I'm really glad they did, because it is a moment. And it's just this, we have so much goodness in all of this. Really, the whole movie just hangs on these two. It didn't need anybody else. I'm glad we kind of expelled everybody else for the time being.
I think
that is the slasher movie, right? It boils down and boils down and boils down until you get to its essence, which is this girl and this guy going at it. It's Little Red Riding Hood and the Wolf, It's and one of the interesting things, I was talking to Adrienne King, and she was talking about making Friday the 13th, and she was saying how much fun it was, but she was like, the weird thing was, because they shot roughly in sequence because it was young actors and stuff. She's like, I wound up being the only person left. And I was like, oh my God, I didn't even think about that. But you're shooting this, you're off on location, you're hanging out with like 8 or 9 other kids your age, and you're hanging out with 7 of them. Then you're hanging out with 6 of them. And I don't know if y'all have ever been on a film set when they wrap someone, but it's usually a big deal. They're like, ladies and gentlemen, so-and-so is wrapped. Everyone gives them a round of applause, and that's it. But it is a very goodbye feeling. And you've sort of been with your little film family for like a month or so, and you're really connected. So this is very much mirrors that to me. They just boil it down, the 2 of them,
Grady, I've never thought about that like, while she's filming this stuff, she's, going back to her trailer, and or they probably didn't have trailers back then, but she's going back to wherever, and she is by herself, because they're not going to pay everybody to just hang around, right? I've never thought of that. Of that.
By the end of Friday, it was just her and Betsy Palmer and the crew. Like, that's it. Which is wild to me at this summer camp, this Boy Scout camp,
I feel like I would get scared.
I still think about Betsy Palmer. Poor Betsy Palmer, thinking she's just doing this little movie nobody's gonna see. She just wanted to get her car fixed.
So are we allowed to talk about the end of H2O?
Yeah.
Zach
was joking. We spoil everything.
Yes.
Okay.
Spoil everything. All right. People should know there's spoilers.
I don't want to backseat drive, but I want to talk about this ending.
Yes.
Talk about the ending. Go ahead.
Let's rush to it.
Yes.
So Ronnie is alive. He pops up. He grabs her. Don't let her. She got to finish it. Let her finish
keep stabbing him.
But she already knows. Because when all the ambulance and everybody's there, and Ronnie's coming up with this plot, and like we see Josh Hartnett again and stuff. And the moment she gets back on screen, she like grabs a gun. She grabs the coroner's van, takes off. Like, I love that there is no hesitation with Laurie Strode in this movie. None whatsoever. She knows exactly what she's gonna do. and she gets him. She drives off. Michael Myers in the body bag in the back. She's watching him. He gets out. He lunges at her, and she slams on the brakes. He goes through the window. She waits for him to get up. He gets up. She hits the gas, and they both go over the side of this mountain. And here we are at the end. What do we got to say, y'all? What do we got to say?
Grady?
It is the ending to their relationship. Yes. I mean, to me, this is it. And what they do in the next movie, I find so cruel and so sadistic. Yeah. And, you know, Jamie Lee Curtis only did this movie because they told her that it would be the last one and there wouldn't be a sequel. And she wanted to have closure with that character, which I think is interesting because, you know, in a slasher movie, kids go to camp and it's a normal thing, or kids go to school, or kids, whatever it is, and something happens to them on a regular day when they're teenagers that they have to live with the rest of their lives. Yeah. And it's the same with these franchises. Adrienne King was just being in a horror movie when she's like in her early 20s. Jamie Lee Curtis is just being in a little movie. Yeah. And they wind up being in a relationship with this franchise for the rest of their lives for something they did that wasn't supposed to be a big deal when they were a teenager. And I get it. I feel like the idea that Jamie Lee Curtis wanted her character have closure with Michael Myers, but maybe also Jamie Lee Curtis wanted to have Jamie Lee Curtis's closure with the franchise and all that. And from what I've heard, when she learned that Michael wasn't going to die, she refused to work. And
she wanted to quit. She was ready to be done. Because that was a big thing with Mustafa Akkad, right? Is like he didn't want Michael Myers to ever die, and it said in her contract, but nobody had ever told her that because she wasn't reading her contract. Come on, that was for somebody to do. That Michael Myers could not die, but she was told this is the end. Because I completely agree with you. She gets signed up to this franchise, and it's every single time they're announcing they're making another movie, they're, you know, all the fan speculation and everybody going to her and asking her only about like Laurie Strode. Yeah, like this is a thing that loomed over her for so long.
Yeah. And I think, and then to find out like in the next movie, like it's not really Michael, you're like, that's
so stupid.
Awful. It's so awful because it's such a beautiful moment. I mean, like you just said, she throws him through the windshield, then she runs over him. They go down. She pins him to a tree, a fallen tree, and then axes him. And you're just like, and they do sort of the like reaching out to touching hands kind of moment. It's everything you want from the end of
and the confidence. The confidence she's exuding, like when she's like, get up, and she's waiting to run him over with that car because she's like, knows he's going to get up because she's not stupid. He survived every time. Like that made me, I actually wanted to, I remember when I saw this in theaters, I saw it with my like high school best friend at the time. And I remember like, so I'm not like one of those idiots that claps, but I went like this because I was so
I would fucking clap for this. If I were in the theater back then, I would have clapped for this shit.
And I remember my friend being like, don't be gay. Well, one, I would like to say, well, here we are. And two, it was just like, that's how excited I was for that ending that she like got it. Because it really did feel like closure, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, one of the things that to me differentiates a good slasher and a bad slasher is the level of intelligence in the characters. Like, I mean, it is one thing I really hate about Scream 4. And there's stuff I like in Scream 4, but so many characters have to do dumb things. Like, what's her name? Who's from Mad Men? Who's in it?
Alison Brie.
Alison Brie. When she's like in her car and she gets out and you're like, why? Why are you getting out? Yeah. And in H2O, Jamie Lee Curtis is so smart. Like you said, I can't remember which one you said, but no hesitation. She's like, I got to get this body and destroy it. He's going to get up. He's, you know, she's just like, she's smart. And that's what makes her so appealing.
Yeah. And there's just this inexplainable, like maybe the word is confidence. I don't even know what the word would be, but like that moment where she's like, because there is that moment that obviously they did to get the fans on edge where they're about to touch fingers and like, but then the axe swing is so swift, so direct, so quick. Like it was one swift shot, and then the movie ends like within like a 10-second time frame. Like that's
then it's over.
And that's it. And it's just like so shocking that like audience people like sitting in the theater must have been like, oh, holy fuck, we don't have a big like shot going out and showing like you know the whole scene, and like it's her. It's almost like she even like was, you know, kind of reaching out, not for him, but for her own sort of like being tethered to this trauma, right? And then she severs it.
Yeah, that's a really good way of thinking about it. Is the last shot in this Michael's severed head? Or is there another shot?
It's her. It's her and the wind, and it blows her little bangs back a little bit, and that's it. That's done. They even cut, well, I don't remember who has them, but there's somebody on production who had, because they had to cut like 2 frames off to make it sync up with the music. And he has like 2 frames from that he keeps in his wallet. Oh, wow. What a freaking keepsake, man.
Yeah. Well, and also, you know, it really reminds me of the way a lot of like old school Hong Kong Shaw Brothers movies end. Yeah. Like Shaw Brothers martial arts movies, they always end like the last thing happens, freeze frame, the end, another Shaw production. Like they punch the bad guy, he goes through a wall, freeze frame, the end, another. Like it's like you're done with the bad guy. We're not giving you anything. Done. The end. Go home.
It's and direct. That's how I
felt with this. Yeah.
And that's fine. I'm fine with that.
Yeah. It's completely direct. And it's just, it breaks the rules of what you're supposed to do with the horror movie. Let's think about some horror movie endings, right? With 2018, they have the shot of the 3 of them on the back of the truck, and then it like zooms in on a knife really dramatically and stuff like that. Like they always do that extra little dramatic flair or something. End of Scream 2, you like Scream 2. They have Sydney walking into the distance in the campus, right?
Yeah. Although it's interesting, a friend of mine was telling me about that shot in Scream 2, because it's that long, like helicopter shot. And if you just took off the Creed or whatever it is that's playing there, it's actually kind of a creepy shot. Like it's a like, good one. Yeah, it's like, whoa, she's just all alone among all these people. And horror movies really get some great, I mean, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, those final 2 shots, you know, Marilyn Burns in the truck and then Leatherface dancing around. I can't remember what the final shot of, I guess, Friday 1 and 2, it's her in the hospital in both of them? In one.
Isn't
I know in one it is. I can't remember.
Freeze frame of him jumping out of the water? I thought it was a freeze frame.
Oh, it is a freeze frame. You're right. You're right. And 2, I think, is Jenny in the hospital or something.
I think so, yeah.
And then, but you know, the first Halloween, I mean, that's one of the greatest set of closing shots, I think, in horror. Just all the empty rooms again, you know, like it's so good. It's so good. Is.
And you just hear him breathing, and he's somewhere, but you don't know where he is. And like in my headcanon, because I do headcanon a lot, I love every single every sequel they'll ever make for Halloween. I will watch any single one they do. They could come up with horrible plots and I'll still watch them. Because in my head, only the first one exists. It makes it infinitely more scary that it was just these random people that happened to fall onto this like horrible thing that happened to them. But then, like when you think about all of the endings and stuff like that, it's just, this one does like stand out because of the finality of it. And it's just insane that they had, because I think they did plan when they shot this scene, they knew that Michael was coming back for the next one. They knew that this wasn't Michael, but Jamie Lee was like, this is Michael, right? And I'll be in the 10 minutes of the next one. That's what she had contracted. That's all she was going to do. You have to kill me. So this was it for her. And I really just want them to use this for the end of Halloween Ends. Like, just do this, right?
I mean, there must have been
Go ahead, Grady. There must have been an impulse too to have a final wrap-up scene with her and Josh Hartnett, or a final wrap-up scene with her and the boy, or something. But they don't do it. It's
crazy, because the last time you see Josh Hartnett ever in this franchise is him like looking as his psycho mother is like driving down with the coroner's van down the road, right?
Yeah, you don't even get a "mom, you were right" kind of thing. Like
nothing. It is it is hasty.
And I feel like they were in that editing room. This is all me projecting, but they realized what they had here and how good she was in this and how strong that was. And we're like, what else can we do here?
Right. Yeah. I mean, at this point, right, like the original Halloween, she wasn't Jamie Lee Curtis, the actor. It was just like, oh, this is who's playing Laurie Strode. But for this, it was like, she is the famous actor, Jamie Lee Curtis. So I felt like they knew they could rely on her for like shit like this. Like, the closing scene can just be her standing there after having beheaded him, and that's all we need.
Yeah. No, exactly. I mean, what else do you need?
Right.
Like,
you just don't.
I'm I mean, I wouldn't have been mad if there was like, oh, she's reuniting with her son, but I didn't. It's like, he's fine. So like
a deleted scene on the DVD, maybe like something
Yeah.
I could watch as a fan and just know that there's like a little something after. But like as a finished product, it just is perfect because they had a bunch of different endings for this, right? They had one where like there was a pool opening up. It was like a gym dance sequence where the floor opened up and there was a pool and they like were wrestling in the water and then the pool closed on him. There was one where they were fighting on a school bus and the school bus was going over a cliff and a helicopter grabbed her at the last minute. And the bus I read about that
one, which sounds bananas.
They were trying anything to like not show Michael Myers at an end, right? They just wanted him to like disappear somewhere. And this is just the fucking head. It's all you get. Yeah. It's all you got.
In my head canon, there's Halloween 1 and 2.
Yeah.
Then there's H20, but it's Jamie Lloyd instead of Josh Hartnett. So it's Jamie Lee Curtis, it's Laurie Strode with her daughter in this. And then it's the 2018 Halloween, I think that sequence, I think Zach, you were the one with that sequence. I think that works.
Yeah, I think
it does,
so.
Right? It really she gets worse from this because she was already bad of like being like, fuck, she's coming back. And then he did come back and she was right. And so, make her a hoarder with guns, like, and all these traps and a house. Like,
I love Laurie Strode with a gun, though. I gotta say, I love her with a room full of guns.
And you could even do what Zach was saying, which is leave out 2, because you go from Michael Myers with 4 people dead to Michael Myers with a lot more people dead in H20 to 2018. But that H20 is the sequel to 1. That makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah. I think I love a headcanon, Grady. We do a headcanon like just about every episode here. I just rewrite this shit in my head anyway, so I'm very glad to hear you doing a headcanon here.
Oh yeah. No, trust me.
What is your favorite moment of this movie?
Oh, that parking lot encounter early on at like minute 40 where Michael's coming across the parking lot and she's closing her eyes to make him go away. It's such a human moment. Like, just let me make it go away. I love that bit.
I meant to say this when you talked about this earlier. I feel there's like a part of me that feels like it is him walking across because she shuts her eyes and then it's her dumb boyfriend. But then her dumb boyfriend, when he turns around, he sees Michael.
Oh yeah, no, I think it's him. I think it's him. Even if I'm just projecting that onto Z, to me, it's totally him because she's hallucinated him so many times, and now he's real, and she can't, So I'm assuming it's him. I could be wrong.
That's what I was thinking too. Yeah. Zach, what's your favorite scene?
Well, it's my favorite. It's got to either be the ending or it's the ending with a very close second honorable mention to her grabbing the axe and screaming her brother's name for the first time. Just freaking iconic. It gives me chills every single time I watch it. And I've seen this movie a lot of times. So
I think my favorite scene is the scene with the cage with the gate and like the kids get in and then she looks through the window and Michael's looking right. And that's just so like that image is like a really good, like the image I think of for Halloween.
I think as a final girl, she is just so, because we love a final girl, right? We love a final girl over here. But I think she is my favorite final girl because she just embodies what it is, what trauma is and what facing your trauma is. Because even removing Michael Myers as an actual person who's there trying to kill you, right? It's always kind of personified as he is her trauma. Like, and it could be with anything. That's your trauma for anything. And it's you kind of facing that. And I just love that they've allowed that character to explore it so many times. There's even for the 2018 movie, there was that, and I've said this before, the Entertainment Weekly spread, and there's a shot of her dressed as Laurie Strode and then Jamie Lee Curtis kissing her forehead, and I freaking love it because it's just everything that is Laurie Strode. So
well, and I think just to touch on what you were just saying about trauma, one of the things that's interesting with this is if you're looking at Michael Myers in H20 as trauma, right? It's coming for you. It's going to catch up with you. Even if you think you're coping, you're probably not. And then once it catches up with you, you got to be ready to face it. And it's just going to be the two of you. No one can help you. It is up to you. And you're going to have to do shit that looks crazy to other people. Like when she drives off with his body, you're going to have to do stuff. But if that's what you need to do, do it, you know, and then cut off its head at the end.
Exactly. But it will be contracted to come back in another
Which
time
is
later.
So awful. So awful. I say this all the time, but it's the one killer they can't kill, the franchise. You know, the forces of market capitalism, they will always beat the final girl.
It'll always be there. Well, we're going to kind of wrap up here, but we want to give you a chance to kind of promote anything you want to promote, where people can find you, everything. Just give us everything.
No, the big thing is GradyHendrix.com is my site. It's got an event page. I'm about to update it with I'm doing live events, hopefully, unless, you know, things get worse in September and October. But I do a show, instead of doing an author event, I do a show about Final Girls, and I do it virtually, which is fun. It works, but it's better live. The show is just sort of about the history of murder books and murder movies and where they come from. Runs about an hour. I think in that hour, there's like 130 slides, so it moves fast. There's songs that are terrible that I sing poorly. And it's a lot of stuff about slashers. So I'm doing them. They're listed on my website. All my social media garbage is there. Just GradyHendrix.com.
Yeah, one big package, GradyHendrix.com.
And if you want to avoid me, then that's exactly where you go to see where I'm going to be, so you don't go there.
Yes, and let's do a promo for it. Final Girl Support Group just came out. I really want to get my hands on the other cover, so I'm looking at.
Oh, the UK cover.
I freaking like that one. That one's pretty.
Yeah, it's good.
So we both have the copy of this. Yeah, we're actually covering this for book club. Yes,
amateur.
But yeah, so go check that out. Ian, where can everybody find Slayerfest and all you?
You can find Slayerfest98 on social media at SlayerFestX98. You can find the podcast and My Bloody Judy in the podcast feed on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and anywhere else you get your podcast. And Zachary, where can everyone find My Bloody Judy on YouTube?
The video version of My Bloody Judy will be, I mean, you're already watching it, AZB bonus features on the YouTubes. So thank you so much, Grady Hendrix, for joining us for this episode. Super stoked by everything you said. Really exciting. And I can't wait. This will be out September, I think, right?
Yeah.
September.
Send me the link. Like in social media.
I will, for sure. All right. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you are excited for Halloween Kills as we all are, and we will see you later.
Bye.
Bye.